Today, we're taking a look at Trap, the 2024 film. And let me tell you, this one gets under your skin.
Oh, absolutely. It's a psychological thriller through and through. And what makes Trap so effective is the way it taps into this primal fear we all share.
Mhm.
The idea of a serial killer hiding in plain sight.
Right. It's like that nightmare you have where danger could be lurking around any corner. Except in Trap, that nightmare unfolds against the backdrop of a Lady Raven concert.
Talk about an unsettling juxtaposition. You've got this massive crowd, pulsing music, flashing lights. It's already a sensory overload. And then you layer on this knowledge that somewhere, amidst the throngs of people, a predator is stalking his prey.
The filmmakers do such a great job of building that tension from the very first scene. And then there's Cooper Abbott, this seemingly ordinary dad who takes his daughter to the concert.
And that's where Trap really gets you, because we're seeing everything through Cooper's eyes. We're experiencing his world, his thoughts, his anxieties.
And you're completely fooled, at least I was. I mean, here's this guy, just a regular dad, taking his daughter to see her favorite pop star.
Right. You get caught up in their relationship, the excitement of the concert, the energy of the crowd. And then, bam, the rug is pulled out from under you.
It turns out Cooper is the butcher, this elusive serial killer the FBI has been hunting.
And that's when the concert itself becomes this incredibly loaded setting. It's not just a backdrop anymore, it's a pressure cooker for Cooper's internal struggle.
You could practically feel his heart pounding as the concert goes on. The director, Shyamalan, uses these amazing close-ups of Cooper's face. The sweat, those flickering lights reflecting in his eyes, it's intense.
It's claustrophobic almost, even though you're in the middle of this huge arena. And speaking of intense, Josh Hartnett, who plays Cooper, is absolutely phenomenal in this role.
He is. He has this way of embodying both the loving father and the cold-blooded killer, often within the same scene. It's chilling.
It's classic Shyamalan, though, right? He loves to explore these morally ambiguous characters, these characters with hidden depths.
Totally. And what I found so interesting about Cooper was how meticulously he constructs this facade of normalcy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the guy's a firefighter. He even collects those newspaper clippings about the Butcher case. Like, he's fascinated by his own darkness.
It's like he's trying to outrun his demons by immersing himself in them. What do you make of that?
Well, it speaks to this duality within him, don't you think? On one hand, he seems almost repulsed by the Butcher's crimes, but then there's this undeniable fascination, almost a sense of kinship.
It's like he's both drawn to and terrified by his own capacity for evil.
Exactly. And that internal conflict is what makes his character so compelling.
Absolutely. But before we dive even deeper into Cooper's psyche, I want to hear your thoughts on the concert scenes themselves. Specifically, the inclusion of those original songs by Saliga Shyamalan, the director's daughter who plays Lady Raven.
You know, I had mixed feelings about that. On one hand, it was kind of cool to have this original soundtrack that really captured the whole pop star vibe.
Right. It felt very authentic to that world.
It did. But I have to admit, there were times when it pulled me out of the story a bit. Like, oh, hey, it's the director's daughter singing.
I get that. It's like that thing where a creative choice can be both effective and a little distracting at the same time.
Exactly. And I think it highlights how subjective the movie watching experience can be. What works for one person might not work for another.
For sure. But speaking of subjective experiences, I got to ask, what did you think of the ending? Because I know Shyamalan's twists are infamous, and this one definitely left some viewers scratching their heads.
You mean with Cooper ending up at that motel watching Lady Raven on TV after he escapes?
Yeah. It's like, we know he got away, but we're left with this unsettling feeling. Like, what's he going to do next?
That's what I loved about it. It's ambiguous, unsettling, and it sticks with you long after the credits roll.
Total cliffhanger. It's like, is he going to disappear into the night? Or is he already plotting his next move?
Exactly. And that ambiguity is what makes it so effective. It's not a neat and tidy ending. It's messy and unsettling, just like real life.
Okay, so we've talked about the concert setting, Cooper's twisted character, but there's another layer to this film I find super interesting. How easily we can be fooled by the people we think we know best.
Oh, absolutely. And nobody embodies that more than Rachel, Cooper's wife. I mean, this is a woman who shared her life with this man, raised a child with him, and she had absolutely no idea about his double life.
It's terrifying, and it makes you wonder, how well do we ever truly know anyone?
Right. It's a chilling thought, and it's something we'll definitely be unpacking further when we dive into Rachel's story and the film's reception, particularly in China, right after the break.
And we're back to Trap. We were talking about how easily we can be fooled by those closest to us, and Rachel, Cooper's wife, is like the ultimate example of that, right?
Absolutely. This is a woman who built a life with this guy, had a family with him, and she was completely blindsided by his true nature.
Makes you think twice about those late-night chats with your partner, huh? Like, what are they really thinking
Oh,
about?
God. Right. And the film does this brilliant thing where it plants those seeds of doubt early on. Like, remember those scenes at the firehouse?
Yeah, where they're giving Cooper a hard time about being so organized all the time.
Exactly. They're teasing him about being a neat freak, but looking back, it's like, hello, red flags.
Right. Totally missed it the first time around.
It's chilling how those little details, those seemingly insignificant moments, take on a whole new meaning in hindsight.
Totally. Speaking of Rachel, I gotta say, I was really impressed with her character arc in the second half of the film. She goes from being completely in the dark to basically outsmarting a serial killer.
It's a pretty awesome transformation, and I think it speaks to the power of human connection, especially in contrast to Cooper's isolation. While he's busy building walls and manipulating everyone around him, Rachel reaches out for help.
That scene where she goes live on Lady Raven's Instagram trying to save Spencer So Smart.
Right. The filmmakers totally nailed that. They took this everyday thing, social media, and turned it into a lifeline.
It was actually pretty inspiring to see the online community rally around Rachel, piecing together clues, and ultimately helping to catch Cooper.
It shows how even in this digital age, with all its darkness, there's still this incredible power in human connection.
For sure. But Trap also doesn't shy away from showing the flaws in the system, right? Like
Right.
the FBI, with all their resources and fancy profiling techniques, completely missed the mark with Cooper.
It's true. They were so focused on their big, elaborate sting operation at the concert that they overlooked the most obvious suspect.
It's like they were blinded by their own biases, their preconceived notions of what a serial killer should look like.
Which is the scariest part, because it reminds us that evil doesn't always fit a neat little box. It can hide in plain sight, behind a badge, a uniform, even a friendly smile.
Definitely makes you think twice about who to trust. So what clicked with Chinese audiences that maybe didn't quite land with Western viewers?
Well, one theory is that the film's themes of family duty and the pressure to maintain appearances really struck a chord in Chinese culture.
Oh, that makes sense. Those are really strong values in Chinese society.
Exactly. And Cooper's struggle to uphold this facade of normalcy while battling his inner demons probably resonated really strongly in that cultural context.
So it becomes more than just a thriller. It's almost like a social commentary on the weight of unspoken truths.
Right. It just goes to show how a film can be interpreted in such different ways depending on cultural backgrounds and personal experiences.
It's the beauty of art, isn't it? It sparks these kinds of conversations, these different perspectives.
Absolutely. But cultural differences aside, there's also been some debate about the film's portrayal of women, particularly Lady Raven and Rachel.
That's fair. What are your thoughts on that?
It's tricky. On one hand, you have these strong female characters. Lady Raven uses her platform to connect with fans, advocate for important causes, and Rachel, she shows incredible bravery and resourcefulness throughout the film.
Yeah, she definitely holds her own.
She does, but at the same time, you could argue that their stories are still ultimately driven by Cooper's actions.
So they become, in a way, victims of his manipulation, even if they ultimately play a role in his downfall.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk, and it definitely highlights the importance of scrutinizing even films with positive messages, to make sure they're not accidentally perpetuating harmful tropes. Representation matters, and it's a conversation we need to keep having.
Well said. It's a balancing act for sure. But for me, one of the most fascinating things about Trapped is how it gets inside Cooper's head. Like, what makes this guy tick?
Right. It's like trying to understand the psychology of a monster. And what's so disturbing is that the film doesn't portray his descent into darkness as this sudden dramatic transformation.
It's more like a slow burn, right?
Exactly. It's this gradual erosion of empathy, this chillingly rationalization of his own evil.
Yeah, like he actually convinces himself he's above the law, above basic human decency.
Which is terrifying, because it means anyone is capable of this kind of darkness given the right circumstances.
And there's that scene, I think it's right before he takes Lady Raven, where he talks about seeing these perfect people and feeling this urge to destroy them.
Oh, I remember that. It's like their happiness, their very existence is somehow an insult to him.
Exactly.
Pure narcissism. It's not enough for him to have control. Others have to suffer.
And it goes even deeper than that, doesn't it? Like there's that scene with his mother where he talks about the look in his victim's eyes, the fear.
Oh, guts.
It's like he feeds off of it, Their pain is his fuel.
It's disturbing, to say the least, and I think that's what makes Cooper such a terrifying villain. He doesn't fit the mold. He's not some shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. He's a firefighter, for God's sake. He's supposed to be the hero.
Exactly. And that's what makes Trap so effective. It challenges our assumptions about who we can trust. It makes us question everything.
It stays with you. Like, I swear, I was looking at everyone a little differently after I saw this film.
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
like you're walking down the street and you're like, what's that guy's deal?
Exactly. It's like that feeling you get when you're walking alone at night. Even if nothing is there, you can't shake that feeling of unease, that awareness that something could be lurking just around the corner.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's like this underlying sense of paranoia. You know something's off, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
And I think that's what makes Trap such a powerful film. It taps into this primal fear, this understanding that things aren't always as they seem.
And that evil can hide in the most unexpected places. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Trap, what's the final verdict?
Well, it's definitely a wild ride, that's for sure. It's a film that will keep you on the edge of your seat from beginning to end. But it's also so much more than just a thriller. It's a film that makes you think, makes you question, and ultimately makes you see the world in a whole new light.
It's a film that reminds us that the most unsettling truths are often the ones we're most afraid to see.
Well said.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the many layers of Trap. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.